And Rishi Sunak, the new UK Prime Minister, says the country is facing a profound economic crisis. But he says he's not daunted by the challenges that lie ahead. Take a listen.
The government I lead will not leave the next generation, your children and grandchildren, with a debt to settle that we were too weak to pay ourselves. I will unite our country, not with words, but with action. But some mistakes were made, not born of ill will or bad intentions. Quite the opposite, in fact. But mistakes nonetheless. And I have been elected as leader of my party and your Prime Minister, in part, to fix them. And that work begins immediately.
Now, earlier on, Rishi Sunak was invited to form a government by King Charles at Buckingham Palace. He replaces Liz Truss at 10 Downing Street, who only took over at the start of September, but was forced to resign after market turmoil rocked the British economy. Well, let's go live now to our London correspondent, Alex Isat, who's standing by for us. Alex, just start off by fleshing out some of the other details from that first speech by Rishi Sunak outside 10 Downing Street.
It was a really interesting, powerful speech, actually. I do think that he said the word trust a number of times, and that's clearly what he wants to put across, that the country needs to trust him, that he needs to be credible. Now, there were quite a lot of other things that he said. Obviously, he started off there with Liz Truss, suggesting that she didn't mean to do anything wrong to the economy, but unfortunately mistakes were made. So a little dig there at the past, and he's suggesting that now he can be the one to fix it as he's going forward. He talks about long-term plans, he talks about putting the country first. He asks that we all come together now so that we can move forward together. He did also say that there will be difficult decisions ahead when it comes to a cost of living, and also we did hear that from the Chancellor Jeremy Hunt when he took over from former Chancellor Kwasi Kwarteng, when he also said those words, there will be difficult decisions to be made. So we're not expecting that suddenly Rishi Sunak will come in and the economic policies will all completely change and we will have a different outlook on the cost of living crisis. He obviously spoke about the 2019 manifesto as well, suggesting that he is going to be implementing some of those policies that the country voted for when they voted in the Conservative members. Now, that is quite interesting in itself because the opposition have repeatedly been suggesting that there is no manifesto, that Rishi Sunak is unelected and he has no policies to be put forward. But there he's saying it's not true. He does believe in that manifesto and he wants to use it again to help build the economy. He talks about the NHS, he talks about how we can make sure that we can go forward and have economic growth, but in a stable way as well. I do think that what he was trying to show the country, that it's up to us all now to come together and to move forward from what has been quite a disastrous couple of weeks, well, couple of months really, and that all the country must unite, and that with action he could be the one to restore trust. So I think it's quite interesting in its sense that he used the words professionalism and accountability, because I do think that a lot of people would be quite worried and have said many times over the past few weeks that the professionalism has been gone because there's been a lot of pettiness and a lot of backstabbing, and we still keep hearing that some of the backbenchers are so angry that they may even join Labour and Lib Dem in a vote of no confidence. But at the moment, I think Rishi has given his time, giving him his cabinet, get them together over tonight. What we'll expect tomorrow is to see who is going to be part of this cabinet, and hopefully we'll get some answers whether he will talk about that fiscal statement and whether we're going to see the OBR report on Monday and what we can look forward to in the future, hopefully growing and hopefully trying to sort out some of this real serious issues of the cost of living crisis as we head into winter.
All right, thanks for that, Alex. That was Alex Isat live for us in London. All right, let's get some more analysis on the new British Prime Minister. We are joined live by Greg Swenson, who is a political and economic commentator. Greg, thanks very much for being with us. I just want to get your thoughts on that pledge from Rishi Sunak to bring the Conservative Party, to bring the country together after such a lot of turmoil over the last few months or so. What do you make of his chances of actually managing to do that?
Yeah, I think it's a big challenge, Giles, and I'm not sure that anybody could do it right now. And I appreciated the fact that, he used some honesty and some candor about the economic challenges ahead. And I'm not sure about his reference to the mistakes that were made, whether he was digging at Liz Truss or he was referencing the mistakes that were made by Boris and Rishi himself during the pandemic and during their three years in office. So that I wish there'd be some more honesty about, perhaps even apologies for the reckless spending, for locking down too long and for ignoring some of the recommendations from the conservative right on economic policy. So look, there's no doubt, Giles, that there are factions. It's a bit tribal. There's definitely divisions in the Conservative Party and divisions in the country. I'm not sure he can pull everybody together, but what I think we can agree is that, the idea of going back to the Thatcherite economic movement of the 80s is not possible for now until, the electorate and the party either is educated about it or embraces it. But it looks now like the only thing that Conservative MPs agree on, or the only philosophy that they agree on, is holding power. And I think that's troublesome for the economy ahead.
And you mentioned Liz Truss's mini budget there, all of the market turmoil that we've seen over the last few weeks or so. What do you think Rishi Sunak has to do in the next few hours, the next couple of days, to reassure international investors around the world about the UK's public finances?
Yeah, it's a great question, Giles, and there's no doubt there was some volatility. I think, if anything, he should just be very deliberate and very careful about what he does. That's the mistake of Liz and Kwasi was maybe going out of the gates a little too quickly with what appears now to be radical policy. It wasn't radical 30 years ago, but in retrospect, the Thatcher years almost look like an exception, not a turning point. I think if there is going to be a return to conservative economic principles, it's got to be done slowly and deliberately. And so I think Rishi's in a good position to do that, sort of manage through the crisis first and then start thinking about conservative philosophy later. But right now, I think stability is the key word. But I also would add, Giles, that, the volatility in the markets wasn't really caused by the Prime Minister Truss's economic plan. That definitely rocked it a little bit, but rates have been going up consistently. The Bank of England is at fault here for keeping rates too low for too long, and of course the pensions were gambling and not properly hedged. I'm not sure that I would blame the Prime Minister Truss for all of that, but surely the messaging and the speed of the delivery was just too aggressive, as it turns out.
And just finally, Greg, you talked about Liz Truss there perhaps not being entirely to blame for the market turmoil that we've seen over the last few weeks. What do you think her legacy is going to be, other than being the shortest serving UK Prime Minister in history?
Well, what I hope her legacy is that she proposed a return to conservative economic theory or philosophy, and that she just didn't message it properly and didn't time it well. But hopefully there'll be someone else, and whether it's Rishi or a successor in 2029 or 2030, after Labour takes over for 4 or 5 years. Hopefully the new generation of conservative MPs can take the lead on that and actually educate both the party and the country on a return to, supply side economics, liberating the private sector, surely liberating the energy sector, which we might see that now that they changed the fracking ban. But remember that fracking ban was from a conservative government, from Boris Johnson in 2019. So it's going to take a few years, Giles, and I think we all have to be, those of us who think on the right economically, we're going to have to be patient here in the UK.